Authorities in Ukraine say a Russian ballistic missile attack has killed more than 30 people and injured dozens of others. Kyiv said 2 ballistic missiles hit the center of Sumy in the northeast. Now, European and U.S. officials have condemned the attack, one of the deadliest in months. A warning to our viewers that you may find the images in our next report disturbing.
A car dashcam shows the moment a Russian missile struck the city center of Sumy. As civilians were on their way to celebrate Palm Sunday, survivors captured a second missile strike. The blast destroyed buildings and vehicles. Dozens were killed and scores more injured. Rescuers worked to free victims from mangled vehicles and collapsed buildings. For many, nothing could be done.
We live in the city center. There's no military base. There are no soldiers here. It's simply a genocide. It is genocide.
Ukrainian officials say the missiles contain cluster munitions, so Russia was deliberately trying to kill civilians.
I was in my apartment on the 4th floor. I was in the hallway and was thrown by the explosion wave. I don't know whether I lost consciousness or not, but the medics helped me. Thankfully, I'm okay.
On the ground in Sumy, Donald Trump's long-promised end to the war has not come in time to save these civilians' lives.
Our correspondent Jan-Philipp Scholz is in Kyiv. He has more about this attack.
We know that the streets were quite crowded when 2 ballistic missiles hit the city center of Sumy around 10:30 in the morning. Local media say it's the worst attack on civilians since the 2 years, since 2023. And also local media report that some cluster munition was used to make the destruction as horrible as possible. Also, a lot of people here fear that the number of casualties might still rise in the coming hours throughout the night and in the morning. And a lot of people that were eyewitnesses there say that the destruction is almost impossible to believe. A bus caught fire, cars caught fire, several residential buildings, and there was panic throughout the neighborhood.
And all of this on Palm Sunday, a holiday that is quite important to Christians. Do you think the fact that it took place on this day has affected the number of casualties we're seeing?
It certainly has. Sumy is just around 25 kilometers away from the Russian border. So when there's air raid alert, the time between the alert and the impact is very short, especially when it comes to ballistic missiles. And also, as you mentioned, it's Palm Sunday, a very important religious holiday here. So we know that a lot of people that were hit were actually on the way to church and were hit while they were on the streets in front of the church.
Tell us what kind of reaction to this attack we have seen in Ukraine so far.
The mayor said it's an absolute tragedy. President Zelensky says that it's an act of terror and that he demands a very strong reaction of Western countries. This attack certainly contributes to an even further growing anger and frustration here in Ukraine, especially just a few days after US Special Envoy Witkoff visited Russia's President Putin. And a lot of people here say that they have the feeling that the ceasefire negotiations are not going anywhere, that the United States are still too patient and too soft with Russia, and they say that they have the impression that the attacks have even increased since the beginning of the ceasefire negotiations.
DW's Jan-Philipp Scholz, thank you so much for your reporting. Now, leaders in Europe and elsewhere have reacted with horror to that Russian attack on Sumy. Let's bring you through some of their statements now. We had French President Emmanuel Macron saying on X, "Everyone knows this war was initiated by Russia alone, and today it is clear that Russia alone chooses to continue it." Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk commented the Russian version of a ceasefire, Bloody Palm Sunday, Sumy, Ukraine. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said this war must end and Russia must finally agree to a comprehensive ceasefire. We're working toward that goal together with our European and international partners. And a reaction from the United States, President Trump's special Ukraine envoy, Keith Kellogg, stating today's Palm Sunday attack by Russian forces on civilian targets in Sumy crosses any line of decency. I'm very pleased to now welcome Halyna Yanchenko, a member of the Ukrainian parliament, joining us today from Kyiv. Thank you for speaking with us on DW. To start, I would like to take a look at the situation in Sumy. What can you tell us about what has happened there today?
It's a terrible tragedy, and all of us are very sad in Ukraine. So I would like to start with my condolences to the families of those who were murdered and injured. And today, the 34 people were killed and 170 were injured. Today, on Sunday, during the big religious holiday, just a week before the Easter. So I'm really speechless, and the attack that happened, the tragedy that happened in Sumy really breaks my heart and hearts of many Ukrainians. And I should tell you that this is the second huge attack where a number of civilians were actually the victims of Russian attack. Just a week ago, there was a huge tragedy in Kryvyi Rih where 14 people were killed, including 5 children. And the attack was basically on the playground where a lot of families, mothers with their children were just spending time playing with their children. And today, the downtown of Sumy is basically the area where a lot of residential buildings and educational institutions, shops are located. So it's obvious that actually victims of this tragedy were civilians.
Mm-hmm. Now, I need to ask you about why you think we're seeing what appears to certainly be Russia currently intensifying its attacks. What do you think is behind the timing here?
Well, it's not that they are intensifying the attacks. This is the only thing that is pretty clear is that all these peace talks that U.S. is holding with Russia are not giving any results, because Russia have been attacking Ukraine with victims among civilians for the past 3 years, like this huge attacks with prohibited weapon, with cluster bombs, with all kinds of prohibited weapon, with ballistic missiles heading towards the residential buildings and educational facilities. Mm-hmm. So, but what is clear now is that even despite the discussion on the end of the war that is happening, Russia is not stopping. So the only conclusion that we can draw is first, the only way to stop the war is to force Russia to stop this war, because it's Russia who is constantly attacking, basically breaking all the international legislation, but also traditions of war. This is Russia who is causing all these atrocities. So an only way to force, to end the war is to actually force Russia to end it. And
we heard the international condemnation of political leaders of the attack on Sumy just now in the show. Are you optimistic that their words will actually translate into action?
Once again, if Russia will be forced to end the war might stop. So the message that I want to send to US leadership as well as European leadership is to focus their attention on Russia, not on Ukraine. It's Russia who should be forced. This is my first message. My second message is that the war in Ukraine, an unprovoked war of aggression, is not the first war that Russia has started. So it will be also very important not just to end the war, but to force Russia to pay all the damages they caused to Ukraine, to pay to the families of those who were injured and killed. If Russia won't be forced to pay, they will not have any lesson learned, and they will keep on their aggressive policy, their aggressive state policy, and continue invading other neighbors. So this is something that it's very important to understand for European and American leadership.
And thank you for joining us on DW. To share those messages with us. I'm afraid we're running out of time, but we've been speaking with Halyna Yanchenko, a Ukrainian member of parliament. Thank you again for taking the time to speak with us.